In the history of warfare, few names command as much respect and awe as Napoleon Bonaparte, and among his many victories, one stands out as a true masterpiece, a textbook example of military genius. Today, we're diving deep into the fog-shrouded fields of Moravia to witness the Battle of Austerlitz, also known as the Battle of the Three Empires. This isn't just a story of cannons and cavalry charges. It's a tale of psychological warfare, brilliant deception, and a gamble that paid off in spectacular fashion. The year is 1805. Europe is in turmoil. The Third Coalition, a powerful alliance of the Russian Empire, the Austrian Empire, and Great Britain, is formed to crush the ambitions of the newly crowned Emperor of France, Napoleon. After a stunning victory at Ulm, where he captured an entire Austrian army, Napoleon's Grande Armée pushed eastward, deep into enemy territory. He captured Vienna, the Austrian capital, without a major fight. This might sound like a huge win, but Napoleon was in a precarious position. His supply lines were stretched dangerously thin. Winter was approaching, and he was facing a combined Russo-Austrian army that vastly outnumbered his own. The Allied commanders, Tsar Alexander, the First of Russia, and Holy Roman Emperor Francis II of Austria, were confident. Their combined force was nearly 90,000 strong, while Napoleon could only muster around 73,000 men. They believed Napoleon was weakened, cornered, and desperate, and Napoleon, the master of manipulation, did everything he could to encourage that belief. He sent envoys to the Allied camp, speaking of peace and armistice. He deliberately showed his army in a state of apparent disarray and low morale. He even abandoned a strategically important high ground, the Pratzen Heights, practically inviting the Allies to occupy it. The Allied High Command, particularly the young and eager Tsar Alexander and his Austrian advisors, fell for it hook, line, and sinker. They saw what they wanted to see: a weakened French army ripe for the picking. The veteran Russian commander, Mikhail Kutuzov, was skeptical. He urged caution, advising a retreat to regroup and further stretch French supply lines. But his voice was drowned out by the chorus of ambitious nobles and a Tsar hungry for glory. Their plan was simple: use their superior numbers to sweep down from the Pratzen Heights, envelop Napoleon's seemingly weak right flank, and cut off his retreat route to Vienna. It was a classic, textbook maneuver, but they were playing against a man who wrote his own textbook. On the eve of the battle, December 1st, 1805, Napoleon rode among his troops. It was the anniversary of his coronation, and as he passed, his soldiers spontaneously lit torches and straw, creating a river of fire that illuminated the night sky. They cheered Vive l'Empereur. Their morale was anything but broken. Napoleon, in his famous proclamation, told them exactly what would happen the next day. He explained that while the enemy marched to outflank his right, they would expose their own center. While they are marching to turn my right, he said, they will present me their flank. He had laid the perfect trap. The morning of December 2nd dawned cold and thick with fog. The sun of Austerlitz, as it would become known, was yet to rise. As Napoleon predicted, the bulk of the Allied army, over 40,000 men, began their slow, lumbering descent from the Pratzen Heights to attack the French right flank. Near the village of Telnitz, this flank was held by Marshal Davout's the Third Corps, who had just completed an incredible forced march of 70 miles in 2 days to arrive just in time. They were outnumbered but were ordered to hold on at all costs, to be the bait that drew the bear further into the trap. As the fog clung to the valleys, it concealed Napoleon's true intentions. He had concentrated the main body of his army, Marshal Soult's the Fourth Corps, directly opposite the now weakened Allied center on the Pratzen Heights. The Allied commanders, peering down from the summit, saw only a fraction of the French forces through the mist. They believed their plan was working perfectly. At around 9 a.m., as the fighting on the French right flank intensified, the moment Napoleon had been waiting for arrived. The sun broke through the fog, bathing the Pratzen Heights in a brilliant, almost theatrical light. Napoleon turned to his marshals and said, "One sharp blow, and the war is over." He gave the order. Soult's corps, nearly 20,000 strong, surged forward out of the mist and began their ascent of the heights. The Allies were completely stunned. They had stripped the center of its best troops, leaving behind only token forces. The French columns tore through the disorganized defenders with brutal efficiency. The battle for the Pratzen Heights was the decisive action of the day. The Allies scrambled to send reinforcements back up the hill, but it was too little, too late. They were now fighting an uphill battle against an enemy who had seized the key to the entire battlefield. The fighting was fierce and desperate. The Russian Imperial Guard made a valiant stand, even managing to momentarily break a French battalion. But Napoleon personally directed his own Imperial Guard cavalry, led by the fiery Marshal Bessières and the Dacian General Rapp. The clash of the elite guards was a whirlwind of steel and courage, but the French momentum was unstoppable. The Allied center shattered. With the Pratzen Heights secured, the French army was now in the Allied rear. The Allied plan had backfired catastrophically. Their army was split in two, and the left wing, which had been so confident just hours before, was now trapped. They were caught between devout tenacious defenders to their south and Soult-S, victorious corps descending from the heights to their north. What followed was a slaughter. Squeezed into a narrow area between the heights and a series of frozen lakes, the Allied soldiers lost all cohesion. They fled in panic. Many tried to escape across the frozen surface of the Setzen ponds. Napoleon, seeing this, ordered his artillery to fire on the ice. The cannonballs shattered the frozen surface, plunging thousands of men, horses, and cannons into the frigid water below. It was a horrific and decisive end to their resistance. Meanwhile, the Allied right wing, under the Russian General had been engaged by Marshal Lannes' the Fifth Corps. Seeing the disaster unfolding in the center, they conducted a fighting withdrawal, saving themselves from complete annihilation but unable to alter the outcome of the battle. By late afternoon, the fighting was over. The combined armies of two great empires had been utterly routed. The aftermath was staggering. The Grande Armée suffered around 10 casualties. The Allies, however, lost over 27,000 men killed, wounded, or captured, with most of their artillery and standards. It was a devastating blow, not just militarily, but psychologically. Tsar Alexander was humiliated, and Emperor Francis was forced to sue for peace. Within days, the Treaty of Pressburg was signed, effectively dissolving the Third Coalition and redrawing the map of Europe. The Holy Roman Empire, a political entity that had existed for 1,000 years, was formally dissolved the following year. Austerlitz is remembered as Napoleon's greatest victory for a reason. It wasn't just about winning a battle, it was about the art of war itself. He used deception to lure his opponents into a fatal mistake. He exploited the terrain and even the weather. He demonstrated perfect timing, holding his main attack until the precise moment of maximum enemy vulnerability, and he inspired his men to perform incredible feats of endurance and bravery. Every element of his military genius was on display. The battle cemented Napoleon's reputation as an invincible commander and ushered in a period of French dominance over the European continent that would last for nearly a decade. For the soldiers of the Grande Armée, it was their crowning achievement, a victory spoken of with reverence, and for Napoleon himself, it was the sun of Austerlitz that shone brightness in the constellation of his many triumphs. It remains a subject of study and admiration in military academies around the world, a timeless lesson in strategy, leadership, and the art of turning weakness into overwhelming strength. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back to 1805. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most fascinating battles, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments what other historical events you'd like to see covered. Until next time, stay curious.